Samarupastam Savidamina Muttale Swayam Rupakaram Nanati Swavantikam Mam Vishnupada Krishnapista Muttale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Govani Pachoyine Nivishesha Shanivari Pisatani Satani Panchakapa Dvigasha Kripasanvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Before we begin, two humble requests. Can we extinguish the incense? Because I'm allergic to the incense and I can feel it affects my voice. Just put it out, the incense. And then my second request, maybe we can have the ladies moving a little closer over here. Is that all right? Since it's a woman speaker, we may as well have the ladies a little closer, so I'm not all alone here. Yeah, just move forward. Yeah. Yes. That's all right. You sit with the side to the deities, that's not a problem. Only the back is offensive, but to the sides, no problem. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to visit you here in Mombasa. It's a great honor and pleasure to spend some little time with you all and share a few thoughts and realizations. Maybe, since it's the first time I'm visiting, let me add a couple of little things to the introduction. That for the last 25 years, I have been spending every year some time in Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, very special place, it's East Bengal. Most of Mahaprabhu's associates come from there. There's a lot of holy places there. And I have learned so many things there. Over 25 years, I have received a whole transformation. And yeah, because our Vaishnava culture is so much preserved there, more than anywhere else, I would say. And when I'm there, I feel like I'm entering Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yeah, it's quite amazing. It's like a different planet, even to West Bengal. So, and that gave me the realization that we need some training and education in how to live Prabhupada's teachings. That to read and study Prabhupada's books is a good beginning, but it's only the beginning. Then comes the real challenge to live it. And I dare say we are not quite there yet in Iskcon. We like to repeat it and quote it and study it, but yeah, to live it is a whole thing, because we are so surrounded by materialistic culture, even here in Kenya probably too. And yeah, then it is not so easy to actually transform our habits and worldviews and mindsets and tastes and likes and dislikes, because we are very conditioned. We don't even realize how deep that conditioning is. So in any case, that's what inspired me to establish this Institute for Spiritual Culture. My base is Mayapur. I spent 3 months per year in Mayapur. Mayapur is the only place where I stay longer than 1 week, basically. And I'm giving all different courses there in Mayapur. And now I'm putting these courses in book form. So each book is actually a 15-hour course, because not everybody can come to Mayapur and take all these courses. So that's why I thought, okay, let me put them in book form and come to you and show you the books instead of you having to go to Mayapur. Of course, it doesn't quite replace spending 6 weeks in Mayapur and taking all the courses, but it's something. And many temples around the world, they even use these books to train devotees. They're very good for preachers because each book is a course. So all you have to do is read 1, 2 chapters, take some notes, or Prabhupada's quotes are in there. Ready is your seminar. Very practical. And at the end of our little discussion, I will mention a few words about each book, hoping that some of you may feel inspired to get some. So now the topic for today is the power of forgiveness, right? Yes. So I dare say this is probably relevant to all of us because I'm sure we all have experienced the situation where we get offended, where we feel some grudges, and maybe we keep them for many years. Sometimes people keep these bitter grudges for 20 years, remembering what that person said or did. The other person may have long forgotten, but we hang on to it. Yeah, so it's a good topic to get some deeper insights and explore a little bit what takes place there and how to overcome it. Because very often we think that forgiving we do for the sake of others. And often we may think the other person doesn't deserve that we forgive. But actually we will discover tonight that we mainly should forgive for ourselves so that we can let go of this bitterness and these grudges, that we can heal our heart. So it's not something we do for others, but mainly actually for ourselves. Yes. So, and also it is interesting to observe, since it's so windy here, I have to put some cartels on my papers, otherwise they will fly off. Yes. Let me start by reading one thing which Bhakti Vinod Thakur says about forgiveness, which gives us a good start to the topic. So this is from Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, giving up the desire to punish a person for committing an offense is called forgiveness or tolerance. So that's already interesting that Bhaktivinoda Thakur equates forgiveness with tolerance. And the beginning is really to the point, giving up the desire to punish a person for committing an offense. That is called forgiveness. So it's all pretty subtle, but what happens is when somebody offends us, we actually, in a subtle way, we want to get back at them. We want to retaliate. We want to take revenge. We want to punish them. That's actually what's happening. So, and as long as we don't give up this desire to get back at them, we cannot forgive. So forgiveness means exactly that we give up the desire to punish the other person for what they did to us. Right? Yes. So basically it means, the fact that Bhaktivinoda Thakur equates forgiveness with tolerance, it basically means that forgiveness is an inability, no, not to forgive, sorry, the other way around. Not to forgive is based on an inability to tolerate, right? So that's another interesting point, which we may have never thought about, how forgiveness, how the power of forgiveness is actually connected with the power of tolerating. Yeah, so quite interesting. And tolerance, we can say, is a secondary quality of humility. So I'll give a few thoughts about tolerance, and then in our second half, I have to admit, 1 hour is almost a little tight for all these rather deep topics which we have over the next few days. Usually I kind of, depending on how much time we want to give for discussion, I actually kind of need 1.5 hours, but I'm not sure. How flexible are we? Do we have to finish at 8:30 sharp, or can we go to 8:45 or something? 8:45 is okay. Okay. Yeah, so I'll try and make it concise. Yes, so humility we can understand as a primary quality which manifests in a whole list of secondary qualities, and tolerance is one of them, or also patience, gratitude, and forgiveness. We can see all these qualities as secondary qualities of humility. In other words, a humble person will always be tolerant, forgiving, grateful, and patient, right? Whereas a proud person will never be any of these. So like that, we can see how it is all connected, that humility is the primary quality which manifests in so many secondary qualities. Because it's not so difficult to say, oh yes, I'm so humble, but then the test is, well, how tolerant are we? How forgiving are we? How respectful can we be? How patient we can be. So that's the real challenge. Yes, so tolerance is a very important quality to develop in spiritual life. It can be almost seen as a criteria to measure a person's spiritual strength and advancement, and how tolerant the person can be. Yeah. So our famous examples are always Prahlad Maharaj, Haridas Thakur. They are the embodiment of tolerance, right? Yes, embodiment. And tolerance means that the false ego is already a little subdued and dissolved, because it is the false ego which protests and rebels, which make us not able to tolerate. It's only the false ego, nothing else. So false ego is protesting. So a person who can tolerate, it means the false ego is already quieted down. And we have learned to disregard the false ego's demands and protests. Right. Yeah, so now let me share a few little statements about tolerance. There's also so many nice statements. First canto of the Bhagavatam, 18th chapter, verse 48. It says there, the devotees of the Lord are so forbearing, which is another word for tolerance, that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. So that's what tolerance is, quite a high level of tolerance. So yeah, when we are defamed, that's a challenge to the false ego, because we're all so attached to our reputation, what everybody thinks of us, and, right? So, if we are defamed, especially also if it is unfairly defamed, when we didn't even do anything bad, but just through rumors and criticism and fake news and our reputation is spoiled, big challenge for the false ego, right? Or when we are cheated, also false ego protests, wants justice, cries out for fairness. Cursed, well, the curses in Kali Yuga are not so powerful anymore, but also neglected. When we are neglected, or also when we are insulted, these are all challenges for the false ego. And yeah, if we simply learn to tolerate such kind of unhappiness, which comes from all these kind of subtle, provocations there. So that means to tolerate. So it's quite an important quality. And of course we have in Bhagavad Gita 269, where Krishna says what is day to the common person is night to the introspective sage. And what is day to the spiritualist is night to everybody else. So that means the vision, the approach to life of a materialist is completely opposite to that of a spiritualist. So much so that these two approaches are like day and night. So that means what is success for a spiritualist is what for a materialist? Failure, being a loser, right? It's a weakness. And what's success to a materialist? What's that? Yes, it creates most likely an impediment, an obstacle on the path of bhakti. So this is another thing which is really important to clearly understand. If we don't understand that, then very easily we take all kinds of things into our spiritual life which are seen to be success in material life, progressive. And then we think, okay, we Iskcon devotees should also be progressive. So, all right, how can we convince others, of Krishna consciousness, of the value of Krishna consciousness, if we don't also include all these progressive trends, right? Pretty common, attitude. But now, what is success in material life most likely will create an obstacle in spiritual life. Good to understand. And tolerance is a very good example of that. And spiritual life, tolerance is really high. It's a highly desired quality to develop. But for a materialist, it's weakness. What? You tolerate that? I wouldn't tolerate that. You know, forget it. I walk out, I get divorced. I'm not going to tolerate that nonsense. Right? That's seen as strength, success, not to tolerate, to fight for your rights and defend yourself. You know, that's progressive and cool and success. Yeah. Yeah, so tolerance, very good example of this day-night principle, which, by the way, accompanies us throughout our whole spiritual life in all different aspects of life. Like another good example is being a mother. In spiritual life, Vaishnava culture, mothers come straight after Krishna, comes mother. I'm sure you all know Matra Deva Bhava, Pitra Deva Bhava, Chaya Deva Bhava, Titi Deva Bhava, right? You know this? Yes. Yeah, everybody coming from Indian background, they know this. So Matra Deva Bhava, you know, mother is the representative of God, of Krishna. Yes, mothers are the topmost personalities in human society. They're the first guru to the living entity. They create the whole spiritual energy and atmosphere in the homes and thus in society at large. That's the mother, yes. Very honored and respected. I've seen this in Bangladesh. Yeah. But for materialist, what? You only mother and a housewife, is that all you're doing? My God, must be boring. You know? Yes, so being a mother in materialistic culture, yeah, it's a loser. You know, you can't enjoy life. You have to be at home like a slave and serve. Yeah, so day and night principle is there in so many aspects. You know. So now sometimes regarding tolerance, people say, well, how much can we tolerate? How much? Or people say, if I tolerate, that all this negativity builds up in me and sooner or later I explode or I get sick. Tolerating doesn't work for me. Sometimes people say that. So now we have to understand the difference between tolerance and simply suppressing. And usually when we think we tolerate, we actually don't, we suppress. And suppressing never gives the answer. It's never a solution. Doesn't matter what it is, suppressing will not get us anywhere. So when we suppress, what happens is that inside the false ego continues rebelling and demanding and protesting. So this whole false ego battle is continuing internally, and we are simply trying to, you know, push it down, but it is going on. So, and that sooner or later will build up and we explode or we get sick or whatever. So that we cannot even call tolerating. That is simply suppressing things. True tolerance is something else, and it requires some internal work, actually. The whole process of bhakti is a very internal process. Very often we have a very shallow and external understanding that we think, oh, you know, making progress means first initiation, second initiation, oh, now we get a position, oh, now I have so many followers on Facebook, oh, I'm making progress. No. Actual real progress is when we agree to do some internal work, mainly on the false ego. So for true tolerance to develop, we need two tools. So the first tool is that we have this mood, actually, I deserve so much worse. But Krishna is so kind, he only gives me one drop of what I really deserve. Yeah. That we say, well, maybe I have done something nasty to this person in this life or in last life, and now I'm getting it back. And actually, I deserve so much worse. But yeah, by Krishna's mercy, it's just a little bit. So what quality does or do we need to have that approach? What do you think? What quality do we have to have? Any idea? We actually mentioned it already in the beginning, but just to be clear. Exactly. So we need some little humility to have this mood that actually I deserve worse. A proud person will never feel like that. Proud person will feel, I don't deserve this. They don't even remember how much service I did, how many donations I gave, what is this, how can they treat me like this, and. So a proud person will always feel that I don't deserve this, right? Whereas a person who has some little humility, they realize actually I deserve much worse. Yeah, so humility is the first tool. And the second tool is that we see our situation with Krishna behind it. That we see Krishna's hand in the picture. That we see, well, there must be some reason why Krishna arranges this for me. Not a blade of grass is moving without Krishna being in control. So what is Krishna trying to teach me here? Why is he putting me in this situation? What am I meant to learn here? That's the second tool, the second mood and attitude we need to have. So what does that mood and attitude require? What do we have to have? That we can see Krishna's hand in the picture. Any idea? Exactly. You got it right. Yes, faith. Yeah. When we have unflinching faith in Krishna, then we can see everything in connection with Krishna. Usually we can only see the good things in connection with Krishna. You know, when we experience that our desires and attachments are fulfilled, then it's called Krishna's mercy. But maybe it's Maya's mercy, Maya's arrangement. She also makes her arrangements, not only Krishna. Yes, but as soon as something happens which is not so pleasing to our mind and senses, then not so easy for us to say, oh, that's Krishna's arrangement, that's Krishna's mercy, right? That we can only see when we have faith in Krishna. Yeah. So faith in Krishna is another one of these really important things to develop. Yeah. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, faith is the currency to purchase Krishna. Yes, it's the currency. Krishna is conquered by his devotee if that devotee has faith in him. And we know that also from our relationships in this world. If somebody has strong faith in us, then we feel obliged, right? We don't want to let that person down. We don't want to disappoint that person. We will reach out to that person and protect that person if they really have faith in us. So, and Krishna is the same. Krishna is also a person. So if he sees that we have faith in him, he will be conquered. Yeah. So these two tools we need to have. We need some little humility and we need unflinching faith in Krishna. And when we approach a challenging situation with that mood, I deserve so much worse, and what is Krishna trying to teach me? Then already the false ego will be quietening down, right? The whole false ego battle will not go on full power. Maybe still the false ego tries to rebel and get its ways, but if we cultivate these two moods in dealing with whatever challenges we deal, then we cultivate true tolerance. Yeah. So good to understand that there is this difference between simply suppressing things and actually tolerating. Yeah. And usually, as I mentioned, what we usually do is we simply suppress. We don't tolerate. Yeah. Yes. So maybe, or let me see, for the second half of this session, I do want to read some forgiveness meditations from this book on the false ego. But let me quickly see if we have any questions about the topic of tolerance before we move on. Is there anything for further discussion or clarification in regards to tolerance? Well, maybe let me add one thing which usually comes up in regards when it comes to tolerance. The topic of abuse, right? Sometimes people say, well, but what about abuse? So let it be clear that we cannot tolerate and justify abuse in the name of tolerance. No, that cannot be. So if we face, severe abusive situations, so what do? We go and reveal our mind to a mentor, a counselor, which we all should have. Because especially also in regards to cultivating tolerance, in our beginning stage of devotional life, usually the false ego is more prominent, and the more prominent the false ego is, the more it blocks the ears and the intelligence, and we actually cannot even see it. So anything in connection with the false ego, we really need a well-wishing friend who is more experienced than we are, where we can really share our innermost struggles and fears, and who gives us good guidance, and who we want to be corrected by. To have such a person in our life, a mentor, this is really important. Yeah, of crucial importance. So, and again, if we find ourselves in an abusive situation, what we should do is we should reveal our mind to a mentor, and that person should take some action. Because there is a Vaishnava etiquette rule. We may get to that when we have the session on the false ego. There is a rule of Vaishnava etiquette, namely that a devotee should never defend himself. Yeah. Because if we defend, who or what do we defend? The false ego, actually. So that's why the rule of Vaishnava etiquette is we should not defend ourselves, but if we see another person badly treated, then we should step in and defend that other person. And if everybody would follow the Vaishnava etiquette, then there would be no need for ourselves to defend ourselves, because surely somebody else would defend us, right? But the problem is that very easily or very commonly, we actually do the opposite. We are very good in defending ourselves practically every day, answering back, blaming others, they're all defense mechanisms. But when somebody else is unfairly treated, then we look in the other direction. I don't want to get involved in this. If I say something, this may damage my relationships, and after all, those people who are involved, they're my friends, so I'm not going to say anything, right? So we do the opposite of what we really should be doing. That's the problem. You know? So going back to an abusive situation, same thing there. If we are in an abused situation, we ourselves, very difficult to defend ourselves anyway. So it's better to reveal our mind to a mentor, and that person should defend us. But again, very often, nobody defends, nobody says anything. You know, that's the problem. So, but yes, you know, abuse cannot be tolerated or cannot be justified in the name of tolerance. This sounds like it's very loud. Yes, Peru.
So, like the false ego is our existence because we are in material world. So, it is possible to be
Without false ego.
Develop all these other qualities which is connected with the false ego. So like humility is the first ascent. Yeah, if you are humble, then everything will come. So we say when we take the shelter of holiness, then we become humble. And then another way is saying, if you are humble, then you can continue to chant. So how it is going to be, until unless somebody not become a spiritual, how this quality will come? So artificially it's possible.
Well, this is a pretty complex topic and not directly connected. But it will become clearer because we will have one session on the holy name, and we have one session on the false ego. But let me just make a little comment. It's not that just being in the material world, we have to have a false ego. We look at Prabhupada. He was beyond the false ego platform. He didn't have a false ego, but still he was functioning in this material world. So it's not that just being in the material world, we have to have a false ego. No. As a rule, it goes like that. As a conditioned soul taking birth in the material world, you know, it develops already at very youngest age. And also the false ego has been taking us from lifetime to lifetime, because at the moment of death, the subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego takes us to the next existence. So yeah, you know, it has been accompanying us for many lifetimes. But it's not that we need this to function. You know, Prabhupada is the best example. He functioned very nicely without false ego.
He came from spiritual world.
That's right. That's right. But still, he came to this material world. He accepted a material body, you know? Yeah, because sometimes people think it's absolutely necessary to have a false ego, otherwise we can't function in this material world. But no, that's not a fact. And I mean, you know, we do have examples also how devotees get, you know, immensely purified. And all right, maybe some tiny little tinge of false ego is still there. But yeah, it has to be, you know, transformed in the real ego of Jiva, Supa, Krishna, and Nityananda. Otherwise, we have to take another birth, for sure. And yeah, see, nothing is happening automatically or artificially. So the chanting, separate topic, we will get to it on Sunday, I think. You know, what we call chanting can hardly even be called chanting, the holy name. We will discover that on Sunday. You know? So yeah, it's a very deep science, very subtle, with what mood we chant. I want to do with everybody a chanting exercise on Sunday. And that usually is an eye-opener for people, that they realize, oh my God, I haven't even chanted the holy name yet. I've been doing something else for the last 30 years or whatever. So, but yeah, they all are connected. But yeah, I don't want to get more into it because otherwise we will not have any time for our forgiveness meditations. So let me quickly take this book here. And yeah, because I find these forgiveness meditations quite helpful in more deeply understanding what the topic of forgiveness is all about and how to cultivate. I mean, all these things are a question of cultivation. You know? It's not something that, oh, now I have it or something, but it requires internal work and cultivation and meditation and, yeah, developing. So first of all, let us remember that life in the material world will always confront us with so many unexpected disappointments, so many hurtful situations. This is unavoidable. It's simply part of life in the material world. So our relationships will definitely be filled with so much more joy and harmony as we learn to forgive and move on, right? Yeah. So I'm sure we all have heard of Nelson Mandela, right? The freedom fighter who was in prison for quite a while. He says the following: as I walked out the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom, leaving the jail, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison. Yes. So these grudges, this bitterness and hatred which we may hang on to, they actually imprison us. Right? Yes. Even more maybe than the jail is doing. Another thinker discovers, I never knew how strong I was until I had to forgive someone who wasn't sorry and accept an apology I never received. We can forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because we deserve peace. That's the thing, you know, that very often we think, no, they are not deserving that I forgive them. But no, that's not the point. We deserve peace. The truth is, unless we let go, unless we forgive ourselves, which is also sometimes difficult to forgive ourselves, right? Yes, we may have done a real big mistake. We may have committed a big blunder, which ruined our whole reputation. So then again, false ego is whispering into our ear, how could you do this? My God, and just see what is everybody thinking of you now? And. So that's the false ego, always whispering all this nonsense in our ear. So again, it's connected, with the false ego. And if we use these two tools in regards to cultivating tolerance, that we have this mood, actually, I deserve so much worse. Krishna is so kind, he only gave me one drop. And what is Krishna trying to teach me? There must be a reason that this happened. Not a blade of grass is moving without him being in control. So, what is he trying to teach me? So, even in that regards, we can cultivate to forgive ourselves if we have this approach. Because maybe we were very proud, thinking ourselves such an advanced and pucker devotee, and then, we are slipping, and it becomes obvious we are not as advanced as we thought. So, Krishna's trying to teach us something. So yes, the truth is, unless we let go, unless we forgive ourselves, unless we forgive the situation and others around us, unless we realize the situation is over, we cannot move forward. We are stuck. We become stagnant. And that's exactly when we need a mentor who can point this out to us, who can say, hey, don't you realize what's done is done? Don't hang on to the past. It's over. You can't change it. So just let go and move on. Very important, because this happens quite a lot in our communities, that there may have been some disagreement, some conflict, one person gets offended, and then if we don't have a mentor to take shelter of, we take shelter of our false ego, and we get offended. I'm not going to go there anymore, I'm not going to do any seva anymore there, and I'll stay at home, I can practice at home. But how long can we, continue with our devotional life, just sitting at home, not associating? Not very long. So this happens so often that people just fade away, never to be seen again, just because of some minor disagreement, some misunderstanding. That's why mentorship, a mentor can save our spiritual life. When we have this well-wishing, confidential, trusting friend, where we know this person has no other interest except my spiritual growth. No other interest. That's what we need. It's a crucial point. It's actually a really important point of devotee care. As you heard in the little introduction, I have been a member of the GBC Strategic Planning Devotee Care Committee. So devotee care, the main is the spiritual care. And the foundation of spiritual care is mentorship, confidential relationships. Guyam Akyati Prichyati, right? Rupa Goswami gives us the 6 loving exchanges. Guyam Akyati Prichyati is revealing your mind in confidence and speaking confidentially. That's actually mentorship. Prabhupada in the purport says, a more experienced devotee teaches, explains, and a less experienced devotee learns from him. That's Guyam Akyati Prichyati, which is mentorship, nothing else. Forgiveness is not only something we do for other people, we also do it for ourselves to get well and move on. Forgiveness does not excuse their behavior. This is also what we often think, that when we forgive, it means the person is excused. But no, it doesn't mean that. It prevents their behavior from destroying our heart. That's what forgiveness does. Maybe it is not always about trying to fix something broken. Maybe it's about starting over and creating something better. Forgiveness is when I give up my right to hurt you for hurting me. So that's the same what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. It is not about letting someone off the hook for their actions, but freeing ourselves of negative energies that bind us to them. Yes. So it is not about letting someone off the hook for their actions, but freeing ourselves of negative energies that bind us to them. So that's what happens when we cannot forgive. Then actually this negative energy continues to bind us to them. And by forgiving, we cut that. We let go of that. Yeah. Forgiving does not erase the bitter past. Very often we say, forget and forgive. But no, we shouldn't forget, because otherwise if we forget very easily, we repeat the same thing. So now we remember, definitely, but we remember differently, without that bitterness, right? Yes. So forgiving does not erase the bitter past. A healed memory is not a deleted memory. Instead, forgiving what we cannot forget creates a new way to remember without that bitterness. We change the memory of our past into a hope of our future. Relationships get stronger when both are willing to understand mistakes and forgive each other. We can offer a prayer. My dear Lord, if I hurt others, give me the strength to apologize. And if people hurt me, give me the strength to forgive. So what do you think is more difficult? To ask for apology or forgive? Forgive, yes. It takes a strong person to say, I'm sorry, and even a stronger person to forgive. But even when asking for forgiveness, sometimes there's also this ego battle going on, that we think, oh, the other person actually should apologize, you know? Or we say, yes, I'm sorry, but actually, you know, then the apology is this lip service. I'm sorry, but, and then immediately we justify ourselves. And we are actually not really sorry. But even if we feel we actually did not make a mistake, still no harm to apologize, just for the sake or for the fact that the other person got irritated or offended or something, or we somehow gave them some pain. That should be enough to apologize, even if we feel it actually was not really my fault or something. Forgive those who have hurt us, betrayed us, or broken our hearts, for they have helped us learn about trust and the importance of being cautious when we open our heart to others. Right? Yes, that somehow when somebody, hurt us, well, maybe it is also our mistake that we opened our heart, or we said or did something which we maybe shouldn't have said and did. So, yeah, in every situation we can also learn something for ourselves, rather than just only blaming the other person. To forgive is not always easy. At times it feels more painful than the wound we suffered to forgive the one that inflicted it. And yet, there is no peace without forgiveness. When we forgive, we heal. When we let go, we grow. Forgiveness is about recognizing that staying resentful creates an active echo of the pain the offender caused. That's what it does if we don't forgive. By saying that the awful offense the offender did is beyond forgiveness, we give them the power to keep their offense alive in our heart. That's what happens. We give the offender continued power over us. Yes, so I hope this makes it a little more clear what forgiveness is all about, that we mainly actually should learn to forgive for our own sake, that we can let go and move on. And also, let's be clear, as long as we hang on to these grudges, we will not be able to enter Goloka Vrindavan with them. All these grudges, they are material aspects in the subtle body. And if the subtle body is not fully spiritualized and transformed, forces us to take birth again. So if we cannot resolve these things in this life, well, we're gonna have to come back and resolve them then. They will follow us around. So that's why also it is always good to clear the atmosphere. When there was some tension, some misunderstanding. Better to immediately clear it up, apologize, and learn to forgive, and not allow these negative energies to hang in the air there and spoil our relationships. Because very easily they become monsters in our head, right? And the mind is imagining so many things and pulling it all out of context, and it distorts things, and it becomes a whole elephant there in our mind. And the other person may have already long forgotten and moved on, but we are carrying a whole big thing there in our head. Not worth it. It only burdens us and occupies some valuable space there, which should be filled with remembering Krishna and not all kinds of grudges. All right, so maybe I won't ask for more questions, but take the opportunity now to quickly so far until I'm back on my seat. Yes, so as I mentioned in the beginning, each book is a 15-hour course, which I usually offer in Mayapur. Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. That's the first book I published. That was in 2018, I think. So this book is all about the different natures and qualities of man and woman. That the equality is actually on the level of the soul. But on the level of the body, we are very, very different, because according to Krishna's system, we are meant to play certain roles. Yeah. And we women are actually very powerful. We have a very powerful feminine Shakti, feminine energy, much more powerful than male energy. Oh yes, Bhagavatam says so. And Bhagavatam is full of stories where the tinkling of some ankle bells make a great personality lose his mind and fall down. But we never hear the other way around, that the tinkling of a man's ankle bells make a woman lose her mind, right? Unless it's Krishna playing the flute or something. So yeah, you know, feminine energy, very powerful. We women can bring the very best out of a man and bring him to his highest level of performance, or we can ruin his life and destroy him. That's the power of a woman. Yeah, you're laughing, but it's true. So this book is all about women, actually. And every woman should read this. Yeah, you will discover a lot of valuable points there. Also very good for young girls. Once they're 12, 13, they can easily read this. And even though it's all about women, in India, in Pune, Chowpatty, all our big temples, they use this book as a handbook for brahmachari training, so that also men understand about the important role we women are meant to play. That we should be the power of inspiration to the men and not compete with them. But because of man-woman equality, the women often compete with the men, and the men don't like that so much, right? Isn't it? No, be honest. So the men always love this book. They always say, oh, finally, somebody understands how a man's heart is ticking. That's usually what they say. Then we have sheltering relationships. So this book is all about the importance of having a mentor. We mentioned it a few times. Just having Diksha, Shiksha, Guru, not enough. We need a mentor. And when you read this book, you will be very clear that without becoming a mentor and having a mentor, we actually cannot make advancement. Yeah. We become stagnant, we stay in our comfort zone, and we don't go anywhere. We just stay in our comfort zone. Very important. So now, false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. Well, maybe we have a little understanding what this is all about, even though we only looked at one little chapter of the whole book. So there's so many things in it. How the false ego manifests in all different ways, how to recognize, how to subdue and dissolve it. And there is a whole chapter on chanting the holy name, because as we mentioned, chanting and the false ego, they are very connected. We can only chant the holy name if we are Chinada, peace and China, as Mahaprabhu said, so more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant. So, but then, you know, how can we become humble and tolerant if we can't chant? So yeah, there's a whole chapter on the holy name in it, because I do conduct holy name retreats also. And the chanting dissolves the false ego, but only if we chant it in the right mood, and usually we don't chant in that mood, so that we will discover on Sunday. And then we have Entering the Grihastha Ashram. This is a handbook for matchmaking. How to see that a boy and a girl are compatible for marriage. Yeah. Actually, it's the father's duty to arrange a husband for the daughter. But that culture is pretty lost here in Kenya. Are people aware of this? Huh? Yeah, well, India, there's still no, but in India, the whole problem is that they mainly look at caste and money, and they don't look at devotional levels of compatibility. You know, that's the thing. So yeah, this is a book for young people who are not married yet, and for the parents or counselors, mentors, matchmakers. Very important. There's a whole list of over 200 topics which a boy and a girl should discuss in the presence of a parent or a matchmaker or mentor or something, to really see, are we on the same page? Because very often people get together just because of physical attraction. And then you have the pink glasses on, and everything looks so rosy. That's why I made it pink, by the way, because of the pink glasses. And then after 2 years, statistically, the pink glasses fade away. And then you realize, oh, why did I marry this person? We don't match. We are so different. And then people argue, and then they separate. People also here in Kenya get divorced. Yes, they get divorced. Yes, yeah. So often a divorce happens because of incompatibility, but also a lack of tolerance too. And not only the women have to tolerate, the men also, by the way. You know, they also have to tolerate the wife's shortcomings and you know. Yeah, so important topic, the matchmaking. Then we have Family Life as an Ashram, Secrets of Success. How to create this culture of bhakti in our home. We need some training in this. You know? And if the culture is there, then the kids who grow into that, they very naturally become devotees. But if the culture is not there and it's just dry rules, then the kids don't want to know about it. So there's so many things in it. It's like a handbook for a successful Krishna conscious family life. Should be in every household. So many things. And there's a whole chapter on physical intimacy in marriage. How to live this principle of no illicit sex life in marriage. There is a bit of confusion over this. Nobody talks about it. Everybody's at a loss how to make things work. So I did some research. I came across interesting episodes with Prabhupada, where he says things which hardly anybody has heard, and people are shocked. What? Prabhupada said that? Oh, wow, really? Yeah. So, very helpful. I hope it will make our family life more Krishna conscious and at the same time also emotionally healthy and balanced. And then last but not least, the Vanaprastha Ashram. That's my latest book. It just came out a few months ago. So not to mix up with Van Ashram. No, it's Vanaprastha. It's the phase in life when the kids are more or less settled in life. Then the parents should move on to the next phase, Vanaprastha. Yeah. It's practically not established yet in Iskcon. And it's like the first book out on the Vanaprastha Ashram. There's nothing else in writing. I like to call it the forgotten ashram. You know, brahmacharis, we know something, grihasthas something, sannyas, but Vanaprastha, you know, nobody even meditates and plans for it. Very important part. And meeting death with joy. There's a whole chapter on death. what happens at that moment, or the subtle aspects there, how to prepare, how to support others in this final journey. I had the good fortune, I was accompanying quite a few persons in this final journey. Also my own parents, I was there with both of my parents, kept them at home. I managed to catch the moment when I had to fly back and park all my traveling and preaching. I kept them at home, I helped them to focus. Both my parents had an amazing departure, even though they didn't, follow properly the process of Krishna consciousness. But basically, all our life, we need good association, and especially in this last phase. Yeah, so very practical, because our parents are leaving, friends are leaving, senior devotees are leaving, sooner or later we are leaving. So we have to know how to give support, and we have to confront ourselves with this topic. Yeah, so if any of you would like to get some book or books, each book is, where am I now? Well, each book is 2,000 shillings, which may sound a lot, but I have to tell you frankly, it cost me a fortune to send these books here from Mayapur by air, by speed post. Very expensive. So that's why I can't really distribute them for less than 2,000. Yeah, I mean, I was just now in Mauritius. In 2 weeks in Mauritius, I distributed almost 400 copies, And most people actually get the whole set, because they're all good topics, So yeah, I take cash, of course, and you can pay by phone by, what was it called? M-Peso. Peso sounds Spanish. Yeah, I'll give you the number, don't worry. We've got it all worked out. Because I don't have an account here in Kenya, but I'm using an account. Okay, so, and my book stock is of course limited. So if you want to get some books, then you better secure your copies before they're all gone. Okay, so thank you so much for your kind attention. And whoever wants some books can come up to me right now, or I will be also here for the next few days. Okay, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Prema.